Good morning, afternoon, or evening. My name is Benjamin, and this is part 1 to my particle tutorial series. Now, particles are a huge part of GameMaker. They're a major, positive thing for GameMaker that didn't really make sense and didn't come out how I wanted it to. They're like one of the features of GameMaker that make it awesome as a development tool. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do them, and I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. That's why I'm doing it in a series. I'm going to teach you, like this example is going to be how to make blood. In the next example, maybe I'll do snow or fire or whatever, water. Whatever we're going to do, I'm going to show you guys how to use particles, and let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create an object, and we're going to call this object particle system. Now, a particle system is kind of like a system where the particles can live in it, and you can control all of the particles in this system. So we're going to learn about two things today. One of them is called a particle system, and the other one's a particle type. So a particle system is kind of like the room. So you've got this particle system, and inside of that system, you can have many different particle types. Like maybe you have blood, or maybe you have snow, or maybe you have whatever inside of this particle system. So the first thing we're going to do is create this particle system. So let's have a create event inside of our object, and we're going to write some code here, and this is going to be global.ps equals part system create create the particle system. Now, we're making this particle system global so that any object in our room can use this particle system. And that's one of the awesome things about doing a particle system as global as opposed to creating it as just a normal variable. So we've just created this variable, and we've assigned this particle system to that variable. That way we can call it later. Okay? And now we're going to create a script. So add a new script to our game, and we're going to call this script part blood. So it's our blood particle blood init. And you can name it whatever you want, but I like to use the word init for initialize because we're not creating particles yet. We're just initializing what the particles are going to be like, and that's why I decided to use init. So don't get confused. This doesn't create any particles, this script. It just initializes our blood particle so that it's ready to be created. So what we're going to do is we're going to do initialize our global blood particle. So this is going to be a global particle as well. That way any monster in our room can use the blood. Some particles you might not want them to be global, but this one is. So global.pt blood equals part type create. So we've created our particle type. Now we need to set some different properties for this particle type. But first, I don't want to have to type global pt blood every single time during this script, and so I'm just gonna for this script I'm gonna create a variable called pt and set it to global pt blood. So that just lets us type in pt instead of global pt blood, but only inside this script. If we try and do that outside of the script, it won't work. Now we're gonna set the settings for the blood particle. Okay, now what settings are we going to do? Now there's lots of different settings you can set, and they all start with part type. So part type, the first one I'm going to do is shape, because you can choose what shape you want to do, and I'm going to do, okay, the first argument in this you can see down here is the ID for the particle. So we're just going to do PT because that's our particle system, right? Our blood particle system is PT. and then we're going to choose the shape, and we're going to do PT shape disk. Okay, and there are lots of different ones. You can look them up in the help file, like PT shape, and it'll come up with a list of all of the different shapes you can choose from, and they're all pretty cool. So you can mess around with those a little bit if you want, but just for this example, we're going to use a disk, and we're going to do part type size PT, and you give it a minimum size, so that's the smallest it could be. I'm going to do 0.1, and a maximum I'm going to do 0.2. You can give it a size increase, whether you want it to shrink or grow. I'm just going to do 0 because I don't want it to change. You can give it a wiggle, and that'll make it kind of like pulse, I guess, but I don't want to do that either right now. You can mess around with those settings later. Part type color 2. So I'm going to give this 2 colors, PT, and the first color is going to be C red, and the second color is going to be C maroon. And that one's done. Part. So what that does is first the particle will start out red, and then it'll slowly change to maroon as it goes through its little particle life. And we're going to set this speed, PT, we're going to do 2 to 5, and we're going to make it slow down with negative 0.1 and 0. So this is the min size, or the min speed, the max speed, the speed decrease. I do want it to slow down a little bit, and the speed wiggle, I'm not going to give it a speed wiggle. Part type direction PT, and the direction we're going to start out. If you know the polar coordinate system, 0 is to the right, and then it goes all the way back around to 360 degrees. So we're just going to do 0 to 360. So these particles can be facing literally any direction. It'll choose a random direction. I don't want to increase the direction. I'm not going to have them spin, and I don't want them to wiggle either. Their direction to wiggle. Part type gravity PT. The gravity is going to be 0.2, and I'm going to make it in 270 direction, which is downward. 270 is downward in the polar coordinate system. Now we're going to part type life PT 25 and 50. So this is how long the particle lives. So these particles are going to live for 25 to 50 whatever life increments, life units that particles live at. I'm not sure. I don't think these are steps, but they could well be steps actually. So 25 to 50 steps. That would be interesting if that's true. But okay, so we're done. There's a lot of other particle settings that you can set once again, but these are just for this tutorial. These are the only ones that I'm going to do right now. And you can mess around with these. That's one of the fun things about particles, is you mess around with them and they like change immediately. So now in our create event, we're going to want to initialize. We're actually going to want to run that script. So initialize blood particles, and we're just going to do script part blood init. Awesome. Okay, now come into this. Let's see, we're going to want to have an other event, and we're going to do game end. Because here's the thing with particles: if you don't destroy the system and destroy the particles, you could end up with a memory leak. So, and that happens a lot for new programmers who are doing this. So the thing we want to do is part system destroy, and we're just going to do global.ps for particle system, and then oops, before that though, we want to do the part type. So part type destroy global.part or pt blood. So destroys the particle system and particle type blood. So we're just going to do this when we end the game. We're going to destroy those so that they're not left in memory still, And now we're going to actually create some particles. So we're going to do a mouse, and we're going to do global mouse left pressed. Okay, so that's how we're going to create the particles. However you create them, whether it's one enemy colliding with your player or whatever you do to create these particles. For this example, I'm just going to use the left pressed to create them. So I'm going to simplify this because there's one other thing. We've learned about what? We've learned about particle systems that are like the room in which the particles live, kind of the world in which they live. And then there's particle types where you have your different particle types that you've created, blood or water or whatever. There's one more thing called a particle emitter, and that actually creates particles, but I'm not going to go into that right now because there's one way to create particles without actually creating a particle emitter. And for simplicity's sake, I'm going to teach you that way first. In the next video, I will teach you about emitters. So hold me to that, but let's do it this way first. Particles, create, and then we're going to do global.ps because that's a particle system we want to create them in. Now we give it an X and Y position, so mouse X, mouse Y. We're going to create it at the mouse's position. And the particle type is global.pt blood. That's the particle type we're going to create. And then the number of particles that we want to create is 10. Okay, so create 10 blood particles. Awesome. So now we're going to create let's save first. Now we're going to create a room, and settings, we'll call this room test. And we'll give it a background color of black just to make this easier to see. And I'm going to put our object particle system in the room and press play. Now, as you can see, when we click, we create some particles, and that is pretty awesome, I have to say, because I mean, this is the first time you've ever done particles. They're a lot of fun, so mess around with these, change the shape, change the color, do whatever you want. Mess around with these particles, make them look awesome, because they're going to look awesome in your game. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure and like, favorite, share this video. You guys are just awesome. I'm going to try and, here pretty soon I'm going to be doing 3 videos a day, because I'm going to have the Risk of Flame tutorial series. I'll have a side tutorial series. Right now is the particle system tutorial series, and then I'm going to be doing a pixel art tutorial series that I'm hoping to start tomorrow. So it's going to be a lot of work, but thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys later.